Tom, if I may.
Yeah.
Okay, so you are recording this.
I just hit record as we speak.
I just saw that pop on. So this will be available at some point in the near future as well on the Ward YouTube channel.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And so with that, I will turn it over to Robin Bennett.
All right, thank you very much, Tom. And hello, everyone. Thanks very much for coming out. Appreciate having your participation. Some of you may have been involved earlier when we had some talk about Sidewalk 2018. And after that time, as Councillor mentioned, City of Ottawa actually expanded the planning process to examine the addition of cycling facilities on Dovercourt Avenue as well. And I want to say up front that this is an issue. Adding bike lanes to Dovercourt Avenue will require the removal of on-street parking, and those wishing to park on-street will need to use nearby side streets. The Dovercourt Sidewalk is actually a phase 1 project in the council-approved 2013 Ottawa Pedestrian Plan. And it aligns with overarching city policy goals and objectives to maximize walkability, along with the whole concept of sustainable transportation. And we have a policy that indicates that collector roads require sidewalks on both sides. So Dovercourt being a collector street, that's the reason why that project was identified quite some time ago. And if anyone's interested in the pedestrian plan, it is available at ottawa.ca. So it's also a phase 1 cycling project in the Ottawa cycling plan that was identified earlier. And in addition, the route is part of a neighborhood bikeway, which is sort of a special category within the bicycle network itself. And so having bicycle lanes along Dovercourt does support active transportation to schools and recreational facilities, and is also a route for commuter cyclists, as I'll show you a bit later. Also an alternative to Carling Avenue, which is actually the designated cycling route, but as everyone knows, not very cycling friendly. The new bike lanes will connect with bike lanes that were put in place in 2019, and will also connect at the eastern end to the cycle tracks on Churchill. So you can see we're building an interconnected cycling network. The bike lanes, as well as the sidewalks, are actually supported by the 30-kilometer designation that the neighborhood has as well. And I just would mention again, Ottawa Cycling Plan is available at ottawa.ca. This graphic shows the place of Dovercourt as a part of this neighborhood bikeway, with the solid line in the middle being the section that we're dealing with directly. But as you can see, it extends all the way westward to the multi-use pathway corridor along Pinecrest Creek. And with the work that Stage 2 is doing, we'll have a direct link to Lincoln Field Station. And at the eastern end, it extends all the way to Island Park Drive. And this project leverages money the city's already spent on improving the section eastward towards Island Park. It's all part of a longer corridor. Just wanted to highlight some of the existing facilities that we're connecting to here. On the lower left side, we have the bicycle lane along Sherbourne, and the other photographs show various locations of Churchill Avenue cycle tracks. So at this point, I'm going to speak about the two separate portions of the project. The first portion replacing the earlier sidewalk that you can see here, extending from Broadview to Churchill. It's very similar to what we had discussed earlier, except bicycle lanes are added, and the actual sidewalk is a little bit further to the south, just a little bit further to the south as a result. Here's some construction details. Again, this is for the section between Broadview and Churchill Avenue. So we're proposing 1.5 meter wide bike lane in each direction, 2 vehicle lanes of 3.5 meters each, a new sidewalk of 2.0 meters on the south side, which is a good standard for the city. I just wanted to mention that the travel lane 3.5 meters is the minimum width that OC Transpo accepts for its buses. So that's what we're going with. The existing road width between curbs is approximately 11 meters, and keeping the curb on the north side where it is today, the new south side sidewalk would be located approximately 1.0 meter in front of the existing curb and 1.0 meter behind the existing curb, fully within the roadway right of way. To reduce impacts to mature trees and utility poles, the sidewalk could be narrowed to 1.8 for short segments, or even down as low as 1.5 if necessary. However, details will be determined during the design that follows the field survey. So once we move forward to the next stages. Street trees will be protected during construction, and this includes pruning by qualified personnel prior to construction, and the use of hydrovac excavation, which was recommended by City Forestry to protect the tree roots during the construction. And again, I want to emphasize all the way along the street, adding the bike lanes to Dovercourt Avenue requires removal of on-street parking, and those that would like to park on the street would need to use some parking nearby on side streets. No stopping signs are part of this. We would erect them every 50 meters along Dovercourt Avenue to reinforce the fact that the lane should be kept clear to make the users feel safe and they don't have to go around parked cars. These are features, some other features that we'll be including in the project, as the tightening of corner radii at intersections where the sidewalk goes in, that we will extend the sidewalk sort of into the road and have a narrowing at the intersection of the side streets, tightening the corner up. It shortens the crossing distance for pedestrians and makes it safer for them from that perspective, a little bit more comfortable as well. That type of work at corner radii tends to slow drivers down, increasing the safety even more. Another feature that is always included in the new sidewalks for accessibility reasons is the tactile walking surface indicators, known as TWSIs, plates that are installed level with the concrete. They're meant to be detectable underfoot or with a cane. They're used to warn people of a potential hazard, such as a roadway, before they step out into it, and particularly good for visually disabled folks. So at this point, I'm going to show some of the actual road plans, and to save space on the screen so people can see some of the details, because it's kind of minute, we put the legend up here. But you can see that there's a number of different categories. And so we'll start at the east end of the project and move gradually to the west end. So this is where it starts at Churchill, connecting with the cycle tracks there. You can see the sidewalk on the south side by the colored blue. That's where it's being added. And the pavement markings on the roadway. Now, I just want to mention with the pavement markings, it's not yet confirmed that this is precisely the way it's going to be, but it's probably very similar to what it's going to look. But during the detailed design stages, we will have some other specialists looking over this, making sure that it meets current standards. So moving further west, now we're at the section east of Golden to west of Melbourne. It's the same kind of a cross section here. Sidewalk on the south side, bike lanes in both directions. Moving further west, now east of Highland to east of Golden, Again, it's a very similar cross section. Road width is all practically the same. So we've got the same sort of situation here. And now we're at Hillcrest Avenue to east of Highland. You can see that our project is only going as far west as Broadview for the sidewalk. However, you can see that we've got pavement markings west of Broadview, in front of Broadview Public School. So that's where the bike lanes continue further west and where the scope was increased from what it was in 2018. A little note there in front of Broadview Public School, there's buses stop and they stop and they park in bike lanes, and that's part of the reason for the dashing. That's all over the city like that. But we don't know exactly what the details are yet. So we're under discussion with Broadview Public School and also with our specialists in traffic services about, so this pavement marking that's there now is not necessarily the way it will be when we actually implement. Here you see the western sector. So these are all the streets that are being impacted from Sherbourne up to Hillcrest here. But in this one, under the construction details, again, I'm just reiterating that there actually is no construction along this section. But what we do is we change the pavement markings and the guidance along the road. We change the street side regulations and put signs up. And that's really it. So the cross section would consist of 1.5 meter wide bike lane in each direction, a 0.4 meter buffer between bike lanes and vehicle lanes. Now, this is to make it a little bit more comfortable for cyclists. There's a little bit more separation between them and the moving vehicles. We're able to do this along this section because we have a little bit more space to work with one exception. The short block between Fraser and Denbury, there was not as much width. So what we've done is to make sure the bicycle lane is continuous, we've actually got agreement with OC Transport to narrow the through lanes from 3.5 to 3.4 meters. That way we have enough space to fit in a narrow bike lane, but still adequate. So that's the only, I guess, the only difference with that. Again, the same thing within the eastern part of the project. We will require the removal of on-street parking, but there are many side streets that have lots of parking available, and the no stopping signs have to be erected. So at this point, I'm just going through the road plans again, just going from east to west, continuing. So this is the section between Mansfield Avenue to east of Denbury. And you can see that the bicycle lanes, this is the narrow section between Fraser and Denbury where we don't have a buffered bike lane because of the width, but we do have a bike lane that's 1.4 meters. Heading further west, you see the section between Courtney Avenue and Gainsborough. You can see the 0.4 buffers on the design here. And finally, to the end to Sherbourne, where we have, as I mentioned, we already have bicycle lanes on Sherbourne. The estimated timelines for the proposed project are 2021 finalized approvals. We hope to have that done within a short time period so that it can move directly into detailed design and have the engineers start to look at this and make the design. And then moving to construction in 2022, if we pending on full funding. We are currently a little bit short, but the chances are quite good that additional funding will come in. So we're anticipating 2022 construction, but if not, it would be 2023. The next steps are please provide your comments to me by April the 25th. My email address is there. And the city, we will complete the project planning with consideration for all comments received. And I'd like to thank you very much for your participation. And with that, I'll hand it over to Tom.
Okay, thank you, Robin. So far I see no questions in the Q&A. But if anyone does have any questions, I see one from Marnie. I guess we'll just go ahead and ask. Go for it, Marnie.
Thanks, Tom. And I apologize if I missed this at some point in the presentation. I was listening and making dinner at the same time. But two quick questions. I'm a resident that lives on Dovercourt Ave. And my first question is just about the north side sidewalk, the existing sidewalk on Dovercourt. It's pretty rough in some places, and I just wondered if there's any plans to do anything about the north side, or if it's just the north side stays as is and the new sidewalk on the south side. And my second question was just about the on-street parking on Dovercourt. Understand the rationale and the no stopping signs, all of that. Does that hold true in the winter too? And the only reason I raise that is both the sidewalk snow clearers and the regular snow clearing on Dovercourt, they go by very often during the winter time. And of course, you need to clear the part that's at the end of the road, but then often we have to go out and clear the part that's been created by the sidewalk pusher going by too. So just wondering, do those parking restrictions stay in place like all through the year?
I guess I'll answer the second question first of all, as well as I can. I believe that they would remain in effect, and I would have to say, until such time as this is added to Ottawa's winter cycling network, we would have to assume that the bike lanes are not winter maintained. So it should mean no change. But if it's added to the winter cycling network, there might be some changes. I couldn't say what, but I think that that's the way it will be right now. And the sidewalk, I guess it's on the west of Denbury. I agree with you. I've seen that sidewalk. It's in very poor shape. It's not a part of our project. We have a certain budget to work with, but because of the discussion and our sort of review of this area, what we've done is we've sent information about the quality of the sidewalk to asset management at the City of Ottawa. And what they do is they have a program to repair existing sidewalks. And typically when they repair them, they also raise the standard to the city standard, because that sidewalk is a very old one. It was built before our current standard, where we have at least 1.8 meters of width. I could see that one is not 1.8. Plus, they should be made of concrete, which is less prone to, bumps and things like that. So it has been confirmed that has gone to asset management. They've acknowledged, and they're going to go and take a look at it. I can't really speak to when anything might happen, but it definitely puts it on a priority list, compared with other sidewalks that they're looking at across the city that they're looking at fixing.
Great,
So,
thanks, Robin.
You're welcome, Marnie.
Zlatko, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment on the question about winter maintenance for Dovercourt. I do happen to live very near Dovercourt, and I cycle in winter and I use it often. I find, as was pointed out, that given it's a bus route, it's fairly wide, it gets a lot of winter maintenance attention. So although it isn't a formal cycling route, I find it to be very good in winter. And in fact, I use it to get to, say, Churchill, for example, to go north-south. And you'll notice that we sometimes put bollards on the outside of the bike lanes. Those are removed during winter. So it'll be, as Robin mentioned, kind of the same conditions as now in winter, but from my personal experience, quite usable by bike for those that winter cycle.
Okay, thank you. I see a number of questions in the chat, and I see that Jeff has also chimed in on the chat. If we could please put the questions in the Q&A, it'll be a lot easier to sort of make sure we have all of them, and then we can. It'll be easier for us to record them, so we have a hard copy of all the questions from tonight as well. That being said, I will go into the chat, and James Splinter has asked, what is the total cost of the project?
The cost of the project is based on estimates that have been put together by our consultants. Although it's not going to be 100% accurate, because once the engineering starts, they may find out other things that might add to the cost, but we're looking in the ballpark of about $750,000 for, well, it's about 700 or 800 meters of new sidewalk and 1.6 kilometers of bike lanes.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Randy Kemp has asked if we could see the detail between Broadview and Denbury again, and he'd like an explanation of the dynamics between the buses and the cyclists in that stretch.
Okay, Broadview and Denbury.
Yeah.
So unfortunately it happens to fit between two slides, but this is the eastern part of it there, if you can see that.
So the dynamics between the buses and the cyclists in this stretch?
Yeah, so I was mentioning before that we know that the buses, actually the buses for the school tend to stop on Broadview, but the city buses have bus stops in front of the school, and the usual practice is to dash the lane, and those buses come in and they will drop off and pick up. They don't typically stay there for very long. However, that there's some special needs students at the school, and they have, I guess, they have some special type of vehicles that stop in the front. And so we're in discussion with the school as well about this, and we're going to try and work some sort of a compromise out, but I can't say exactly what it is. It's just one of those things that needs to come out further in the project, in the design, in the detailed design, and when there's more time to sort of to work it out with traffic services, who are the ones who actually put the approval on whatever the pavement markings are and the regulations. But right now, the thinking is, and then the desire is, and this is supported by the school as well, is to try to remove all of the private vehicles that are stopping or parking along here. But there might be some exceptions for special vehicles, and I'm not sure how we're going to do that. But there is definitely a need, and for those vehicles, and when they come along, they don't necessarily just stop and pick up. They may stop and wait until the students come out of the school. And it's not an ideal situation. We'll try to work out the best compromise, but I can't say what it'll be right now.
Okay, I see Heather Mitchell has a question in the chat, but she also has her hand up. Heather, do you want to just go ahead and ask your question?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everyone. Westboro Community Association. This is a great initiative, and we've been wanting to get more pedestrian access, especially with the kids going back and forth to the community center. So we're really pleased with that. The addition of the bike lane, as far as I can see, the big thing is the elimination of the parking. So my question was, sorry, I should put it, it's a big thing for some residents. They're going to be concerned about that. So my question is, has anybody clocked as to, is there a lot of parking on Dovercourt? Do we have any sense of how many cars are, normally parked there? And if you don't, would that not be important information for us to sort of know, so we could go back to residents and get them to understand that this is, because they will be concerned about parking on the other streets, of course, as you can imagine. So I have to have an answer for residents.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Heather. It's a good question indeed. And of course, we are concerned, we're not knowledgeable about this as well. The entire length of the street has not been surveyed, but the eastern half was surveyed. We have a count that was done November of 2019. It's a little bit long ago, but before the pandemic anyway. And it showed that the most amount of parking that occurred is right on the north side at the school. And for some reason, a fair amount of parking on the street close to the community center, which is not allowed, but it just showed up in the count. But apart from those two locations, it was surprising. For a 1.6 kilometer stretch of roadway with, basically it's free parking for most segments along there, we got very low numbers. Again, I am speaking about the eastern half where we actually did the count, but if you had even one car per block, that was a lot. And in the western section, you can we haven't done a formal survey, but we've observed it sort of anecdotally. And I've spoken to people about it quite a bit, and it's even less parking on the street. So when you talk about the parking, you could talk about the capacity. The capacity is enormous. Like you can have probably 1,000 cars along 1.6, maybe not 1,000 cars, but hundreds of cars, definitely. And there's lots and lots of parking on the side streets anyway. So I hope that answers your question.
No, that's really great, Robin. Just so what I'm hearing though is your intention, like there won't be any kind of a formal sort of survey as to how many cars will be, required to look elsewhere.
Well, like I'm saying, we have a formal survey for the eastern half. I can provide numbers if necessary.
Okay, that'd be great. That'd be great. It would be very helpful to give people some sense that there's not going to be all this all of a sudden lots of parking on the parallel streets or so on. People will have some, just so they can have some sense. Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, if you like it, I can share the survey with you if you like.
It'd be great. Just a little sidebar too. We're also meeting with some folks that are doing some work around the movement of dropping off and picking up students at the schools. And once I get a sense of what that is, Robin, I'll loop you in.
Well,
and Tom, of course, too. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
It would be appreciated, and we've been trying to get a handle on that, and that's why we had meeting with the school itself. We found that they're very positive and receptive to what we're proposing. So.
Okay. So I'm going to round out the questions that are in the chat. One from Ferdas about parking. He's wondering if there's a time limit on the side streets, or can someone park there all day? So, I mean, I can handle that one, right? Every street has different time limits depending on circumstances. Residents also have opportunities to change parking through resident-driven petitions. But at the same time, there is no street where technically you're allowed to park all day as it is right now. Okay.
It's mostly unsigned parking, right?
Yeah, which is 3 hours,
6 hours?
6 hours on weekends and stats. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's only 3 hours during weekdays, isn't it?
Yeah,
that's right.
I think it's 3 hours during weekdays,
That's
and then you can park overnight without a time limit.
That's right. That's right.
And on the weekends without a time limit. But the weekday time limits are there. And I think Dovercourt has the same unsigned time limit as well, for the most part.
I'd have to look at that. I'm not entirely sure.
Yeah, I don't think it has any signed time limits. So it's all the same. It's all the same rules.
And I would mention as well for Heather that we've also sort of got a little bit of a handle on what the capacity is on the side streets. We checked to see where it's available, and roughly 50% of the streets. So it depends on which side of the street as well. And, closer to the school, there's fewer, like 1.5 blocks or 2 blocks away, there's lots of parking.
Okay, thanks, Robin. Stella has her hand up. Stella, ask your question, please.
Yes. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to voice the concerns of a resident on Dovercourt who does rely very heavily on the parking, on the street parking. So I live right on Dovercourt, and we operate a home-based business, which is a personal training business. And we have clients who come several times a day and park in front of the house. So there might be 5 or 6 cars throughout the day who stay for about an hour or maybe 30 minutes, depending. And so if I understand everything correctly, then everyone who wants to come and visit our business will be parking on Gainsborough, most likely, because that's the closest one. But I mean, I've noticed that Gainsborough does have a lot of cars parked on it. Ever since I got this notice, I've been keeping an eye on Gainsborough, and there's usually 5 or 6 cars parked on Gainsborough. So our clients would be walking, well over half a block, I think, to access our property. And the way our property has been landscaped, it's provides access to Dovercourt, but not access to Gainsborough. So they have to go all the way around. And I can see that really being problematic, particularly in the winter, because I do know that I've heard my neighbors talk about when cars are parked on Gainsborough directly across from their driveways, and the road's narrower because of snow. It makes it difficult for people to get out and for people to maneuver. And now we would be asking our clients to be walking along Gainsborough, which is not usually cleared of snow as well as Dovercourt is. So for us, it's a big problem to remove our on-street parking. I also know that people use the on-street parking on Dovercourt just to make room on their driveways for their kids to be able to play. And we like to park our car right in front of our driveway so that our kids can play, and hopefully the car will stop balls from bouncing out onto the road. I also have a neighbor who operates a home-based daycare, and she relies heavily on parking on Dovercourt where people are dropping off their kids. And I think asking people to walk like around the corner on her side of the street, there won't be a sidewalk. So they'll literally be walking along the road to get around the corner into her, to access her place. And so what's really unfortunate, I think, is that the people who are going to be impacted by this are very small in number. There's only really a handful of houses here that face Dovercourt that will be impacted. I think those of us on the north side will be impacted more because the sidewalk limits the length of our driveway. So we can't actually have our visitors park sort of right behind our own cars. So I do want to, I mean, I love bike lanes. They're great. I use them all the time. But I mean, painting lanes on Dovercourt, in my opinion, isn't going to improve bicycle connectivity or bicycle safety by a whole lot, because this already is a well-used bike way that's used in the summer and in the winter by young and old, and it's safe and it's a great place to ride your bike. So, and that's just leaving it the way it is. I don't see how painting the bike lanes, like it's not like new infrastructure, it's just lines on the road, right? So I don't see how much that's going to improve the cycling infrastructure, and it's going to have a whole lot of impact on the residents who do rely on that parking. I also have one more concern. I'm sorry I've been talking for so long, but because Dovercourt is so wide and so straight, we do have an issue with cars speeding along it. And I'm of the view that when cars are parked on Dovercourt, it has the effect of slowing people down. So I'm also worried that if we take all the cars off Dovercourt, and I admit there often aren't that many of them, but if we do take off the ones that are there, then we have like a wide, straight stretch of road that really invites people to speed on. So I'm worried that breaking the speed limit might actually have a negative impact on neighborhood safety, which is what we're trying to promote here. So I think those are all my comments for now. I don't know if you wanted to answer any of those concerns.
Well, they're legitimate concerns. That's what I could say. And well, I could say a few things. One is that the bicycle lanes do have value, and one of the things that makes them valuable is that people know they're nervous. They know they've got the reserve space and only the bicycle can be in it, and they don't encounter a parked car that they have to go around. Now, this is what we get from the public. This is what we're trying to make it as safe as possible for cyclists. And I mean, a lot of people cycle already, but there's plenty that are nervous about it. And these are our targets. And we get asked for bike lanes for that reason. You're guaranteed that you won't have a car that you have to deal with, and you've got your own space. Plus, the drivers will shift more to the middle of the road all of the time when there's a bike lane. So, I mean, it's sort of a trade-off for what you want to, what you'd like to do, and I mean, it's not going to. There's going to be some negative impact. So it's a trade-off, and you have to decide which you want to do. And so I respond in that way to the bike lane, the viability of them. I mean, a lot of us don't really mind on a street like Dovercourt. We are comfortable riding on it, but it's for those people who continually say that they're not comfortable riding in the traffic where the traffic is, that we're doing this. And the other thing is the connectivity part is fairly important, that people will say, well, I have a bike lane, but it just doesn't connect anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere. And so I won't use my bike. But in this case, it does connect to other routes, and it's part of a developing route. I want to agree with you about the parked cars acting as a traffic calming. In the past, oftentimes we were not putting in bicycle lanes and not banning the parking because it was desirable to have parked cars. But it is true that it's not effective at all when there's only one car for 5 blocks that's parked. And so again, it's a little bit of a trade-off. And some people might believe that narrowing the lanes might have a traffic calming effect, perhaps not as much as if you have to get by parked cars, but still there's some effect with the bike lanes. So I don't know if anyone else has some thoughts on this.
Thanks, Robin. I just wanted to say, I hear the concern, Stella. You know, some of your clients will likely end up having to walk further. The overall safety benefit, I guess, is what I'm looking as the trade-off to having a lot of people safer for using bikes on Dovercourt. And what I would hope is that it does encourage more people to cycle, especially to Broadview and especially to the community center who might not be currently, who don't feel safe cycling on a street that doesn't have a space for them. I think I also agree with Robin. You know, when I'm down Dovercourt, it's often not a lot of cars, and if there are no parked cars, what you've got is a straight wide street that gets very fast because there's no impediments to cue drivers that they need to slow down. With painted bike lanes on both sides, that is a permanent 24/7 clue to to drivers that they're in a narrower space and that they need to drive accordingly. So I hear it. But I think the trade-off in this case is worth it.
So James pointed out that the Q&A has been disabled, and I understand why that's happened now, because we had a relatively low turnout and we promoted everyone to panelists. Panelists can't ask questions because panelists are the ones who answer the questions. So we can definitely continue along in the chat. That explains that. So James mentions that he's planning on doing some landscaping on his lawn, southeast corner of Golden and Dovercourt. Is there any guarantee on how much lawn space I will lose?
Sorry, I didn't get the location. Which street was that
So
one?
the southeast corner of Golden and Dovercourt.
Okay. I can say this, that the work that's taking place will only be on the city's right of way. We don't have any need to use any private property for this project. But in terms of the boulevard, the section between the sidewalk and the property line, there will be some plantings of trees and other things like that. But I'm not sure how to answer your question exactly, but we're not going on to any private property.
Thanks, Robin.
Does that answer the question? Or I think maybe we might need to look at this closer. And what I do, I've marked the location, and I will flag that for when the crews come along, when they start to look at the actual design and the details. That's good information for them to have, because it doesn't necessarily mean that there has to be an impact on, if you happen to have landscaping on the city right of way, it doesn't necessarily mean it has to be impacted. And the degree of where the sidewalk is going in, it's only going to be about 1 meter further to the south, although I suppose the construction will take up more space than that. I don't know if, I think that's about all I could say. I don't know, maybe Valerie has a thought on that.
No, perhaps Robin, right at Golden and Dovercourt would certainly, it depends. If you could go over that way, the things that will make a difference is where the hydro poles are. If it's around the corner, you can see at some of the corners, like at Highland there on the screen, there is, we have brought the sidewalk around the corner like we need to do to make sure people can cross the road properly. But I think you are absolutely right. We just, we're not going to be on city, we're only going to be on city property and private property. We're in general, if this design we have looks okay in the end, then it will be just that much, and about 1 meter or so of the city right of way that we will be impacting.
Okay, thank you, Valerie.
And I mean, I will point out that there are places where property owners have put things on the city right of way. So let's hope you know where the city right of way is at your location, because it can be a problem in some areas.
For sure, for sure. Miriam McNeil in the chat says, I'm very supportive of the project. Happy to see it move forward. It will reduce speeding. Will the public have an opportunity to review the detailed design once it is available? And if street trees are removed, will they be replaced and or new ones added where it makes sense?
Okay, normally with a project like this, the next stage of the project, which is the engineering design leading to construction, usually there is some additional consultation because more is known about exactly what the impacts will be. And I mean, because you've asked that, I can definitely put a note to the, because what happens is the project passes from our unit and goes to infrastructure services, a different department, and there'll be a new project manager. I can make sure that he knows about that issue. The street trees, we are concerned, we do not want to lose any, but unfortunately, there's no choice that some trees are going to be removed. And we have had one of the city foresters out to review, and the eastern half. And he has said that there's maybe 5 smallish trees and 1 large one that will have to go. But there's lots of shrubs and other things like that that will be impacted. And also that a normal part of our process for this type of project is that for the trees that are removed, there will be additional ones that are replanted, and if possible along the corridor. Well, fortunately, the forester has looked at that and has said that there's plenty of space for the replanting, and there will be additional trees planted. So I hope I've covered off all the question there.
That's great. Thank you. A comment from Heather Mitchell from the Community Association. Just to comment, the sidewalks are used by folks with baby strollers, people with walkers, and those who use wheelchairs. So be careful about narrowing them around poles and trees to ensure they can still get around. And one more comment from Janet Sheehan, who just says she's so happy to see it happening. Hope it reduces the speed of cars in the road. I'd really like to reduce the width of the street to slow it down.
Oh, okay. Okay. So,
and I believe that is, oh, okay. Furtis is asking, where will the trees be planted? Will they be shown on the design?
Yeah, so what will happen is that when they get to the detailed design and the engineering, they will find out exactly which trees will be impacted. And as I mentioned, they will do their very best to keep as much as possible, but some will come out. And that's the kind of detail that they show when they have the same kind of consultation at the detailed design stage. And again, I just want to mention, I will make a note that they really need to do that when they get to the next stage. So that would possibly will be later on this year.
All right, thank you. Are there any more questions or comments? If not, maybe Jeff, do you want to say some closing words?
No, I think
Okay.
this has been valuable, and thank you very much, everyone, for attending. I do appreciate it.
Thank you. And yeah, I mean, obviously, I think Robin's contact information was up, and you can always email our office with any further questions as well. So thank you all.
Thank you very much, everyone. Jean, I see Jean in the video window there. How are you keeping? Did you get an appointment? I hope you're well, Jean. That's okay. I was just wondering how you're doing. Thank you very much, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Right. Thanks, everyone, for your participation.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Okay. Now, so Tom, here's where we are. I had no button to turn it off. I don't know why, but that's all right. I don't know if you want to chat a bit more or. Yeah, you got the mute on there.
I'm just copying, pasting all the questions that were in the chat so that I have a record of those. And other than that, I think it was, I think it all worked out pretty well. And I can, you know, I have a button that says here end for all, so I can do that in just a second and we'll be good to go.
Thanks very much, Tom.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you again soon.
You bet. Have a good night.
Good night.
Rob. Good night.